a story about a white woman writing a book to confront racism, became one of the most streamed movies on Netflix, even reaching #1 in the US.
You is kind, you is smart, you is important.
The 2011 film's resurgence in popularity was met with a strong backlash because The Help is widely considered a white savior narrative. In other words, a story about people of color that centers on the benevolent actions of a white character.
Any civil rights movie, there's two heroes. There's the black hero and the white person that's equally as important.
Looking at the white savior character on screen over the decades, we can see a common profile. They're a strong-willed, often optimistic non-traditionalist who courageously risks being ostracized by their more prejudiced community in order to help a person of color.
Believe it or not, there are real racists in this town. If the wrong person caught you with anything like that, oh, you'd be in serious trouble.
The white savior tends to be the main focus of their story. So while movies featuring this character may eloquently advocate for unity and fairness, they can also end up sidelining the Black and POC characters.
But you cannot hold Carl Lee Haley responsible for my shortcomings.
Perhaps most jarringly, racism is essentially solved by the end of a 2-hour movie.
Come on, make some room, get this man a plate.
As well-intentioned as many of them may be, the sheer ubiquity of these narratives, which are overwhelmingly created by white writers and directors and frequently recognized by awards, detracts from other stories grounded in Black perspectives and their first-hand experience of racism.
I'd like to write something from the point.
Volume and popularity of white savior films to this day shows how committed our culture remains to centering white characters in stories about civil rights, Black history, and racism. These movies, usually made by white writers and directors, continue to receive top awards over films depicting the same themes made by Black filmmakers.
I mean, every time...
This trend in white savior films echoes the magical Negro trope, which has long been criticized for treating Black characters like counselors in the white character's journey to self-actualization.
There's only one shot that's in perfect harmony with the field. One shot that's his.
Crucially, many white savior
are saved from their plight by a white character. This storyline is harmful to non-white communities, but it may feel strange speaking out against it. Movies with a white savior are almost always based in communities of color with a focus on positive change. To accuse them of being problematic, the inspirational teacher. She begins teaching in a school serving an impoverished neighborhood, and through personally connecting with her students, she manages to set them on the right track. She doesn't even have to take them seriously or treat them as equals.
So, of course, the white savior is someone who feels this responsibility towards people of color. Ironically, these days when we speak of white saviors, we don't usually mean conservative imperialists like Kipling. In fact, the idea of the white savior is usually associated with aid to developing countries populated by Black and brown people, especially countries in Africa. In America, and probably much of the Western world, this lines up with the themes of the white man's burden. Her ultimate mission was not to actually help people, she wanted to save people. And she wanted to do it so she could prove something to herself. And to be fair, Linton admits in the article that she was young and stupid and didn't do enough research, and other African countries who say she misrepresented their situations and accused her of using the Zambians as props in her white savior fantasy. And after the negative reactions, the article was in close-up portraits of those emaciated children I mentioned before. And those are problematic because they've heavily contributed to our oversimplified image of life in Africa and other developing areas. I remember seeing these things on TV all the time growing up. And I know they're usually only like 2-minute commercials, but no context is usually given. It's just like, give us money so we can save brown children. But I guess giving money to an organization that presumably, well, I've seen it personally with people who become teachers or social workers or counselors who work with kids and families of color, but have no experience working or living in those communities and no real concept of what those people even need. They may be unwilling or ill-equipped to talk about things like racism. They may even believe that they can take a colorblind approach and ignore the specific things that children of color go through. But white saviors also often wear the mask of white allies. That is, white activists who participate in causes that affect people of color, but rarely stop to actually listen to and understand.
because we feel ultimately that we're powerless. And until they fix themselves, then we can't fix anything in our world because they're that powerful. Because in reality, we look at them as our gods. That's why we focus and want them to change so much. When in a lot of instances, we need to think differently and we need to change.